Cool. Okay, we're gonna get started. Thank you all so much for taking the time and driving out here, taking the ferry. I'm Scott Greenstone. I'm KUOW's politics reporter. And my first question, we're gonna essentially, for most of the night, I think, start on one end, move over to the other, then start on that end and move back. So sometimes you'll have a lot of time to think about your answers, and sometimes maybe not so much. It's all okay. The first question is, who are you? This is actually four questions, kind of. Who are you? Where do you live? How long have you lived in Washington State? And how involved in politics are you? So, Liz, we're going to start with you.
Okay. I'm Elizabeth Vignali. I live in Bellingham, Washington. And I've lived there the majority of my life. We moved there when I was 10 years old. But my family has been in Whatcom County since the 1880s. So we've been there for a really long time. And I'm active in politics as far as voting and maybe putting some signage up, writing about it, because I'm a writer. Not so much belonging to a technical group like the Democratic Party.
Yeah, that was so perfect. And it was like, maybe on the short end, but it didn't feel, that was perfect. Everyone do exactly that. I'm kidding. And I'm sorry, it's Kathleen, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
Kathleen Kondak. I'm in Bremerton, Washington. I've lived in Washington State for 9 years. And I'm not that involved in politics, although I am to the extent that it affects my everyday life all the time, but I vote like what you were saying. So.
And you vote in every 4 years or in every election?
Every election. I mean, we all get it mailed to our house. It's pretty easy to vote in every election here. So
Special elections too. Nice, cool. Good for you. All right, Mary.
Marie.
I'm sorry, Marie.
okay.
I'm sorry. It's written, I think, as Mary on this page, which might be incorrect.
It's okay. It's like French, not English. That's all.
Okay, Marie. Thank you.
My name's Marie, and I was born and raised in Seattle. My parents immigrated here, and it's always felt very important for me to vote and to sort of take an active civic role, whether that's volunteering or voting. And I try to vote in as many elections as possible. Sometimes there's transportation or health issues that are obstacles, but besides that, it feels important to do it as much as possible.
This question's going to Ron.
So I've lived in Washington my whole life. I was born in Seattle in 1951, so you can do the math on that. Moved to Bainbridge Island in 1965, and I have been involved in politics, voted in all the elections. I ran for city council and got elected in 2015 in Bainbridge Island. And I've helped other candidates get elected, worked on their campaigns, and learned a little bit about how to run campaigns and how city government and regional government works. So I have been involved in politics.
Nice, yeah. Just a little bit.
I'm Elliot Smith. I live in Suquamish, Washington, on the Port Madison Indian Reservation. I'm not a Native American. It's a community that is a mix of Native and non-Native people. Kitsap County. Born and raised in Washington, fourth generation Washingtonian. Have lived here my entire life, except for 5 years. Lived in the Bay Area while my husband was going to graduate school. And about 2.5, 3 years was assigned to a Merchant Marine Ready Reserve ship in Texas. So about 8 years of out of state. The rest of my 41 years have been in Washington. I'm very active in politics as far as just being a news junkie. Both my parents are retired journalists, obsessively read the news. I tend to pop up and get involved when there's an issue that really matters to me. As far as voting, I always vote. I had a perfect record of every election until I forgot to mail my school board ballot from Texas on time.
We still love you.
Thank you.
All right, Mary.
What's the
Who are
series?
you? Where do you live? How long have you lived in Washington State? How involved in politics are you?
Okay, Mary Williams. I've lived here my entire life, born and raised.
Seattle? Rainier Beach?
Seattle.
Yeah.
No, I've lived in several places, but mostly the central area or South Seattle or I did live in Everett for a little while. And then what was the third part?
How involved in politics are you?
Well, I'm pretty involved. On the little precursor question thing, it was saying, who are your heroes? And certainly my mom and dad, because they cared. They were both in unions. They were both school district workers, employees. And so now that has given me, a concern for all things that connect to work and labor, and then I'm also a survivor and lived experience in recovery, and I'm an SUDP, so I have a clinical eye as well towards some of the stuff that's going on with homelessness and substance abuse and mental health. So yeah, I do pay attention to politics. Recently, soda and soap, so pretty involved.
SUDP, thank you for the work you do. That is really critical. Okay, this one's also going to you, and we're going to move opposite way. You came in at just the right time.
Okay.
When did you first vote, and who for, and how have you changed since your first vote?
Okay, my first vote was for Bill Clinton, and I was at UW at the time in the dorms. Terry Lander, I was in Lander, and that was my first. I'm 18 now, I can vote. Although I did used to also remember how when we used to vote in person at people's houses, it used to be like a lady in the garage over in Mount Baker area, and they had the kid voting. And so we would do the little, before when we had the hanging chads. So that was kind of like, you felt like you voted.
Clinton first time? 1990?
Clinton first time, yeah.
Great. How have you changed since then?
I just, a little deeper dive, a little more research, a little more about Clinton. At that point, I ended up doing some stuff about stopping the 5-year clock, the welfare clock, because that was his whole thing, was stop the welfare clock. So yeah, that made me do a little more research. So yeah, I just do a deeper dive than I did back then.
Yeah.
On everything.
Elliot.
My first vote was for John Kerry for president. Stood in line in Bellingham to vote for John Kerry, and that would have been 2004? Yeah, 2004. How have I changed since then? I was in college. I had the answer to everything. We were going to solve all the world's problems by getting George Bush out of the White House. I think I've just gotten more, I don't want to say bitter, but more pragmatic. I'm willing to make more compromises now than I was when I was a 19-year-old voting for John Kerry.
Yeah. Someone will say a local. We had a local election last time. It was like an off year. I'm excited, but maybe not for Ron.
Clearly, I'm the oldest member of the panel here, and
we're right behind you, Ron. Don't worry.
All right, good. I'm glad you got my back. And so I can't even remember for sure the first presidential election I voted in. I think I might have voted for Nixon, but that's the only time I've ever voted for a Republican for president. And I was a big supporter of Jimmy Carter, of course, all the Democratic, big supporter of Clinton and Obama and Biden and Clinton. So I've been I've just over the years felt like the Democrats were closer representing my beliefs, especially in terms of environmental issues, although Nixon did sign the Clean Air Act and establish the EPA along with Congress. So, but over the years, it seemed like the Republicans have become less interested in environmental stewardship, and that's really important to me. So that's kind of why I've gone to Democrat most of the time.
Great. Marie.
I feel like I'm disclosing a secret, but I actually grew up Republican, and I was a college Republican, and part of it was sort of I went through I inherited certain values, and then I went through my own discovery process, both with religion and politics. And so I initially voted Republican in, I think it was a presidential election. I'm not sure which one. And that I believe would have been the last time time, I had voted for a Republican president.
And how have you changed since then?
Well, it was like I've had a transformative amount of change since then. Inheriting those values, like the belief system, a lot of growing up evangelical, fundamentalist, right wing, conservative, South Asian, Pentecostal Christian, and having a lot of the values that come along with that. It felt like there was a lot of pressure to feel like in order to have faith, I had to vote a certain way, and that way of voting on abortion and gay marriage, just those things didn't make sense to me anymore, and so my life has changed when I have felt like we need the right to our own bodies, and people need to love who they want to. And there's no sense to me in restricting that in any way. And it doesn't seem like a loving thing to do, and it doesn't seem representative of any kind of faith that I know of.
You're not the only one here who grew up in a conservative community. Evangelical. I also grew up in a small town, Fallbrook, California. Kathleen, first vote, and who for, and how have you changed since then?
My first vote was for Barack Obama in 2008. So that was a pretty exciting first vote to get to have. I was on a college campus at the time. I was in Ann Arbor at University of Michigan. And it turned into a party. It was great. And it's also like right around my birthday. Unfortunately, my birthday's November 5th. So can make or break this year. We'll see how it goes. But that was a very exciting first vote to get to have. So that was very cool. And how have I changed? I think I'm from the Detroit area. My family, public employees. My mom worked at a school and my dad was a city treasurer. Very strong supporters of unions. So I don't think I've changed that much, but yeah.
Great. Liz.
Well, this has been so interesting because I was going to be surprised that my first vote was for George W. Bush. I was also raised conservative in a conservative Republican household, not a religious household, but very strong fiscal conservatives, and so I was proud to vote for George W. Bush. I also, though, just think my grandparents and my parents were conservatives in sort of what I still think of as the true sense of conservatives, which is making do with less, and I still let that inform my choices. So that kind of hasn't changed in some ways. But as my world expanded and my heart grew and I learned more, I guess my heart grew to encompass people beyond my immediate sphere. And that has really influenced my choices, especially environmentally, human rights, and that sort of thing. The environment is really important to me.
Great. Okay. How has living, this one will go to you first, Liz. How has living in Washington shaped your political views?
Well, it has been interesting. I don't know. It's so hard to know if it has or how it has, because I did grow up in a conservative household, but Bellingham is a liberal bubble, of course. And so it can be hard to know how you're being influenced. But I do feel like my background, because I know people are capable of change, I like to think that I don't go with the flow and I think carefully about every issue because we have to. Living in Washington, even though if you are a Democrat voting person, we all typically know that the state is going to be going in that way, and it can sometimes feel like it doesn't matter how you vote, but it's so important to just keep voting for what you believe in. Yeah, for the world that you want to see.
Kathleen?
I feel like Washington is far more liberal than my home state of Michigan. Growing up, I went to Catholic school, so that was a little different and not really what my family reflected. So we had the, Right for Life Club in high school, which I was not a part of that. And my family supported that. They didn't think that was, they thought that it was a woman's right to choose. And here I feel like not that your vote doesn't matter. Your vote always matters. But I think we can predict a lot better which way Washington is going to go in a lot of elections, much more so than Michigan. I felt like my liberal vote, my left-leaning vote counted almost more in Michigan, if that makes sense. And especially, I grew up in a wealthy community north of Detroit that was pretty conservative. Mitt Romney's from where I grew up, so it's a little conservative in that regard. So, I think my vote matters here, but I don't think it. I think you're more likely to run into a lot of people who think the way you do in Washington than you do in Michigan. So,
Yeah. Marie?
In some ways, I feel safer being here, in the sense that, like, being first generation to this country, it feels like when, we were under the 45th regime, as I put it, like, I felt safe because, like, Bob Ferguson and Jay Inslee had our backs, and I felt like there wasn't going to be, they were going to, like, do what they could to really protect as many immigrants as possible. And so there was a sense of safety in that. There also feels like a lot of dissonance to me. Like, I think if we're really that liberal, how come there is such a huge wealth disparity? How come there's such a huge homelessness issue here? One of the top in the country. Like, where is our true sense of like care and like fiscal policy that could really help to change these social issues? So in some ways I wonder, are we saying that we're liberal, but we're actually kind of libertarian at times? I'm not saying me personally, but I'm saying collectively Washington. I wonder about that.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Ron?
So maybe you could rephrase or kind of tell us what the question was for all of us.
Yes, of course.
Kind of lost it going through.
No, yes, yeah. How has living in Washington shaped your political views?
Okay. Well, I remember the 50s and 60s, which none of you do. And Seattle and Western Washington was really pretty conservative back in the 50s and 60s. And it was the Cultural Revolution that happened in the 60s. It really changed a lot. And that affected me as well. I got into natural foods. I was a conscientious objector during the Vietnam War. And there was a lot of consciousness raising. I learned how to meditate when I was 19. And, the Beatles and the whole, all the music and the culture and everything. And then I was fortunate to grow up in a place, Bainbridge Island, that had a lot of artists and really interesting people. And I remember, we kind of felt invaded for a while by the Californians, but a lot of my good friends are from California. And some of my favorite people are from California. So I've kind of lost that prejudice, but I've been influenced by a lot of really cool people and Bainbridge artists, psychologists, Zen Buddhists, real eccentric people, thoughtful. So I feel really fortunate in that regard. And, we have just become, I'd like to think we've become more enlightened, although at times it's obvious that there is a lot of divide in our country. But and was there one more question part of that?
No, that was
good.
That was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That was perfect. Thanks for leaving your prejudice against Californians behind. Sometimes when I accidentally say the 5, there's still like people just jump down my throat. They're like, "Oh, you're not one of us." Elliot, how has living in Washington shaped your political views?
I feel that we have an exhausting brand of liberalism in this state that knows what's best for you, and that's what we're going to do. And it's frustrating. I've been to all 39 counties in this state. I used to spend, a lot of time in the summer up in the San Juan Islands, lived in Bellingham. My mother-in-law's down in Westport. Cousin's retired from Spokane Police, visit with her a lot. I know this state. I've been everywhere in this state. And what we do in this state is what sounds good to King, Pierce, Snohomish counties, because that's where the electorate is. And there's stuff like, people talk about we should do a mileage tax. That would be better. That would be more equitable. What about when my sister-in-law's got to drive 75 miles round trip from Westport into Olympia to get medical care for her kid? How's that equitable for her? It's just an example of I agree with like the spirit of what we always are trying to do in the state, but the execution of it seems like it's what sounds good in 3 counties, and the other 36, lots of luck.
Mary,
Okay, state the question one more time.
how has living in Washington shaped your political views? I could say it every time. I probably should.
Well, for me, I think that being a Seattleite, being a Washingtonian, and I do have friends that are in different parts of the state, it kind of made me a little naive, especially when you go to other states and then they really get Washington confused with DC and all that, and so it's been a little bit of an eye-opener, coming into adulthood and realizing, that the rest of the world isn't as liberal as us. And I spent a summer in Ohio, and that was rather jarring. And just the fact that many parts of the country are still so segregated. And then, you alluded to homelessness, but also the whole just race is such a huge construct that's still very, very prevalent. And although we be liberal, we still have a lot of areas and issues that don't seem to have changed that much. So I'm not naive anymore about that.
Okay, new question to you. What's the number one policy issue driving your vote?
The number one policy issue? For me, it's really not... For me, it can be, based on a number of different policies. But for me, what's really important, that what drives my vote, is access to the candidate. So do I see the person out in the community? Do I see the person coming to places that I go to? Do I see the person as a person that I can actually access, talk to about my issue? To me, that's what's the most important. Currently, my most important policy issue is around substance use disorder and mental health, but also policing connects to that, homelessness connects to that, and then human trafficking is also a huge policy issue for me. So it's not really one thing. To me, it's all connected. So it's just who's going to actually be accessible and who do I see listening and interacting with the people in the community.
Yeah. Elliot, what's the number one policy issue driving your vote?
Crime. I'd like to see the state make crime illegal again. I'm not a stupid guy. I have a master's degree. I understand the recidivism argument. The whole point about if we just arrest people for petty theft, then they're going to do it again and again and again. And I've got to the point where I don't care anymore. What about somebody's right to be able to park their car and not have it broken into? What about somebody's right to be able to walk down the street and not have fentanyl smoke breathed in their face? I think we've done this experiment that has not worked, and it's time to let cops arrest people again. It's time to prosecute people for crime again. And is that going to solve drug problems? Is that going to solve everything? No, absolutely not. But I don't like that. My mom's car got broken into at the Marymore Dog Park. I work on a passenger vessel, had a passenger roll on his 250-pound toolbox on the boat the other day because he was worried somebody was going to steal his tools while he was parked at the dock. This is not a functional society. We can't live like this. We need to have a little bit of law and order. And I'm torn though, because I'm not supporting Trump. I'm not a conservative. I don't want the Republicans in power forever. But this time around, it's crime.
Yeah, Ron, what's the number one policy issue?
So it kind of depends on the candidate we're talking about. But when we're talking about a president, I want a policy where people tell the truth. And I remember when Nixon lied to the country back in the early 70s, and my truck driver uncle was outraged. It was one lie. And we have a former president who almost everything he says is a lie. Mm-hmm. And to me, to me, that's enough reason. Aside from all the other stuff, to vote for Kamala Harris, because I'm not going to say she doesn't stretch the truth at times, but she tries to be honest, and I really respect that. So, with the Public Lands Commissioner, I really like his position on wanting to be more of an environmental steward of
Dave Up the Grove.
Up the Grove, yes. Up the Grove. I was just reading about him, and he wants to approach. How the public lands are administered with, thinking about climate change and ecosystem services. And I don't know how his opponent would be. She's a Republican. I suspect not as aggressive in that regard. So that was really refreshing. With governor policy, I do agree with the law and order thing, but I find Ferguson more competent overall. So I'm veering a little bit from the policy stuff. I don't want to hog too much time here.
That's okay. It is an open-ended. People have been like, well, national or local, and it's like, take it how you want it.
I'll add one thing that I do agree with Mary about accessibility. We have a young state house candidate from Bainbridge Island, Greg Nance, and Ella, you maybe have met him too. He's really concerned about the ferries. Very accessible, very task-oriented, and I'm really excited about him. I've known him since he was in high school and playing baseball and stuff. So,
just Bainbridge Island things. Marie, number one policy issue driving your vote?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it local or national. When I think about it nationally, I think immigration, women's rights feel really important to me. Access to social services for those who need them. There's so many impediments to getting things that you need. It doesn't feel right for people who are already suffering to have to work that much harder. And part of the reason, like when I think about these issues, and I think about the importance of voting, is because I think about what has happened to our laws when we had a president replace Supreme Court justices with people who could overturn history in such a negative way. And now we have to redo all this work. So that's what feels really important to me nationally.
Yeah, great. Kathleen?
I think a lot of our elections and a lot of the issues that we're facing as a more local, I think that the regular person has been left behind too often. I am really excited to get to vote for Emily Randall in November. She doesn't take corporate money, and I think that's something that speaks very, very loudly to me. I think that a lot of the issues we're facing in Washington, and if you bring the lens out even further nationally, I think it all stems from those kinds, from corporate investment in politics, which I don't think that should be how we vote. Mm-hmm. And when I think about it nationally, like you were saying, access to healthcare, that means so many different things to a lot of people. And I feel like I have a parent who's aging, and she's set up great. But I worry about what healthcare is going to look like for my mom in 10 years. I don't know what that's going to be like for her. So I think healthcare access looks different for a lot of folks, and I think that needs to help level the playing field for a lot of us. I think that would make a huge difference in a lot of folks' everyday life. And I think you alluded to it earlier. You care a lot about the environment. I think everybody's alluding to all these different things. It all connects, and it's really it's so hard to pick just one thing. But I want back to my original point. I think getting huge corporate donations, getting all that money out of politics, I think is a good place to start. And yeah, so.
And that's Emily Randall, Democrat candidate for the 6th congressional district.
Yes.
Yeah.
Job.
Yeah.
Thank you. I did do some reporting on that race. There is like corporate money being spent on behalf of her from like the crypto, a cryptocurrency pack that's like weird, but they're spending on a ton of different races, so it's interesting. It's an interesting race. Liz, what's the number one policy issue driving your vote? I'm sorry. Is that what? Yes, that's the right one.
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, that sounds right.
One more, and then we move on to the next one. I was like, we're moving on. I'm already thinking about the next one.
I think, Kathleen, you said it so well. For me, it is the environment. It's always the environment, because without our planet and clean water and clean air, everything else is irrelevant. That being said, when people are in survival mode, it's impossible to make those choices. I've been there. I've been a single mom, and I'm tired from work, and I want to do what's easiest for me. And so I buy pre-packaged things and just all the plastic that we throw away. That shouldn't have to be the responsibility of people who are already struggling. And so even though to me the environment is the most important thing, I want to leave my children a better world than the one I came into. And in some ways we have. I grew up with smog in Los Angeles, and that sort of thing. We know we can make a difference. It's so important to not lose hope, to know that we can. But all of these other things have to be tackled in order for us to get to the point where we can see beyond ourselves. We have to help each other, and help the people who have the least in order to be able to focus on things outside of ourselves and make those smart choices.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, not to double dip, but since I didn't really say
Oh, sure. Okay.
race, voting rights,
Okay.
reproductive rights,
Okay.
anti-violence, gun violence.
Okay. All number one policy issues. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all. Okay, we're going to talk about the initiatives. There's 4 initiatives. It's getting really fun now. And they are 2109 that would repeal Washington's recently established capital gains tax. 2117 would cancel the cap and trade portion of the Climate Commitment Act. That cap and trade program is a carbon auction that sells the ability to pollute to industries. The money is used to fund climate change measures. 2124, the Washington CARES program. It began in 2023 and added a mandatory payroll tax to every worker in the state. The money is slated to pay for long-term care later in life. This initiative would make the tax optional. And then 2066 would prohibit the state from banning or discouraging the use of natural gas. The state does not currently have a natural gas ban, but supporters of this new ballot measure have pitched it as a rejection of a potential ban. Just a reminder, if you vote no on these, it's the this one always confuses me.
Vote no if you want
no
to
to keep
ban
things to
natural
stay.
gas maybe someday.
So saying yes to these, if you're saying I'm going to vote yes on all of them, for instance,
You're repealing.
That is a repeal of all of those programs. If you're voting no, that means you actually like the programs or feel that they should be kept around. And so the question is, which initiatives are most important to you and why, and how are you planning on voting? You can go as much into depth or as much as little, even if you haven't maybe decided yet. So Liz, first.
Yeah. For me, initiatives always have a higher bar because I think that's why we elect officials, because they're the ones, our elected representatives are the ones who do the research. And so as long as I voted for someone that I want in office, I'm trusting them to make the smartest choices for me as, one of their citizens. But But that being said, so initiatives have a high bar for me to ever vote yes on an initiative in the first place. But then as well, these initiatives, I'm not sure about all four, but I know the two that I am most well versed in, the capital gains tax one and the carbon emissions one, are Republican backed initiatives to try to take away things that our Democratic legislature has put in place for us. I really like our carbon emission, the thing that Jay Inslee put in for us. I think it was a really good step forward. I think it's flawed. I know the main argument is the price at the gas pump, which does affect everyone. Your sister driving her kid. That's not small. That's not small for people. That being said, it's a good step forward, and then we can tweak it as needed instead of just saying, throw it out. I think ever since we've been humans, we have put industry first. We've always prioritized our own growth. And I just would like to see what happens if we can put the environment first and see how that goes. Because putting industry first has not worked out well for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Kathleen.
I mean, let's not wait. If I vote no on the capital gains thing, the capital gains
You
portion.
like the capital gains tax.
So yeah, tax rich people, that's fine. Please. Yeah, that's okay. And it's it's $250,000, right? I think that's the limit. Yeah, that's,
About 8%.
go ahead and tax it. I think, so I commuted from Bainbridge to Bremerton for a couple of years. And when the the cap and trade passed, it's a great idea. And it really, it sucked for regular me. It added up really quickly, and we have to have these aches and pains in order to move on to a more carbon neutral future for Washington. We have to go through these horrible things, like not horrible, okay, not horrible, but we have to go through these just starts and stops and bumps in the road along the way. But when people vote, they feel it in their checkbook and their pocketbook, and they look at their bank account, and that's very powerful for an individual. So I hope that it continues, but like you said, it's very flawed, and I hope we can fix it so that way it works for more Washingtonians. And can you remind me of what the other two were?
Yeah, that's okay. So you plan to vote no on the Climate Commitment Act repeal?
Correct.
You like
keep it, but I think we need to elect people that are going to go to the state and say, look, this isn't working for a lot of us. How can we change it and make it better?
The other two are the Washington Cares program, the payroll tax. It would make the tax optional, and prohibiting the state from potentially banning the use of natural gas in the future.
So, well, I just put a gas furnace in my house, so I really hope they don't ban that soon. So I will probably vote to make sure that I don't know. I actually don't know how I'm going to vote for that. That's a very good question. I don't know. I think that's a very expensive upgrade for a lot of folks. If you're on gas appliances already, I'm in Bremerton. A lot of houses are built in the 40s. A lot of houses can't handle a huge electric load. So that's another $30,000 to $40,000 to upgrade your house to handle a heavier electric load. That's out of scope for a lot of people. So I think that, again, if you're going to pass something like that, or in the future, if you want to do something like that, you have to do it in a smart way that brings everybody along with you and create incentives to make sure that people get to go with you on that. So I actually don't know how I'm going to vote on that one yet. I'll have to think a lot longer and a lot harder about that one. And oh gosh, what was that? That's okay. We can move on.
Yeah. It's the question is like, which initiatives are most important to you and why, and how are you planning on voting? It's okay if you haven't, decided on all four. They're complicated and it's hard to even talk about them because you're like, no, I'm going to vote no because I like that program. It switches a lot of people up. So it's okay if you just talk about a few that mean something to you and that you're going to vote on. Marie?
Can I just ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
Fossil fuels isn't part of this part of the issue transportation of coal and the leaking of particles into the environment that are carcinogens?
Part of the Climate Commitment Act. I think it may be this would only repeal the part of the Climate Commitment Act has a somewhat large scope. This would only repeal the part that is related to the carbon auction. So it essentially polluting companies go to this like super secret auction and they buy pollution. They basically say, give me the right to I'm going to buy the right to pollute this much amount. That's the only, as far as I understand it, that's the only part of the Climate Commitment Act that this would repeal. There are other aspects it wouldn't affect. It would affect some of the funds that the state gives to, climate measures, things like solar panels on state buildings, things like that.
Real quick, would it be okay if I ran to the restroom, or is that a really inconvenient time?
I think it's fine. I think that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No. Oh my God. No, please. If you need anything, it's totally fine. So Marie.
Sit up. So if I'm understanding the initiative correctly, corporations want to not have to pay to mitigate their use. Is that correct? So basically use as many fossil fuels as you would like.
If the carbon auction went away, actually, this is a good question. If the carbon auction went away, would they be able to just pollute as much as they want? I'm not totally sure about that. I think there are other regulations related to it.
Tell you what, if you listen to Soundside, our podcast,
that's right.
From Monday, Tuesday, and today, over in the next couple of days, they have as many answers as they have been able to get on this. They've got a whole episode that's about people who are in support of this and people who are against this. And they actually spoke with Brian Hayward, the person who gathered
sponsored this.
Yeah.
So
Deep dive.
it's completely understandable that it's not super clear because it's taken us this long to be able to find any answers or people with any answers to the consequences.
And the other state laws still apply. It doesn't mean you can just start dumping diesel oil.
Yeah. It would just mean that that this system that we have, this secret auction, it's not secret, but like I can't go there and buy a bunch of
Well, so I feel like I want the auction to stay in place because I want there to be some mitigation of the consequence of using fossil fuels to our environment. That feels important to me. From this specific amount of knowledge that I know right now. I also feel like it's important for me to keep a flexible mind and know that I am not omniscient. There's information and expertise that I could listen to and be better informed by. And so I feel like it's helpful to be here and hear other people's lived experience as well. The first initiative the capital gains tax, I'm like, yes, please keep that in place. It's only taxing people over $250,000. And I believe that people who are 65 and over do not have to pay that for long-term capital gains.
Inheritance and stuff like that. Mutual funds.
Mutual funds.
That are long-term versus a short-term trade or whatever. That's what I think
it depends,
is true.
but yes, I believe you're.
So there's some protection for them, which I think is really important to like save your whole life and then not to get taxed on it in the end would be horrible. So I do think it is important to have. I do think it is important to have those taxes help our community because we don't have an income tax right now. Yeah. So
Cool. Thank you. Ron, which initiatives are most important to you and why? How are you planning on voting?
So I think the one that's most important to me would be I don't remember the number, but the repeal of part of the Climate Commitment Act. I'm going to vote no on that. I think that we need the continuity of moving forward with what the legislature's done, and they're going to be doing some corrections to it to address the concerns that have come up, and I think we need that continuity. I'm highly skeptical of the state's overall climate strategy. I think it's lacking in a lot of things. We need a more clear policy about our forests and carbon sequestration. How are we going to harvest the forests in consideration of maximum sequestration, also other ecosystem services? You would think that would have been addressed by now, but I don't believe it has. The Clean Energy Transformation Act, which is another one of the climate legislation, is mandating that utility providers provide their customers 100% clean energy or carbon-free electricity by, I think it is 2045. I think that's highly unrealistic. I think there's other things we need to do to go along with that. We need to talk about consumption. We need to talk about airplane travel. We need to talk about population growth. All these things contribute to increasing greenhouse gas emissions. And on Bainbridge Island, we have some aggressive, the city government has some aggressive goals. They have a climate action plan. And we're not meeting those reduction goals. And that is really typical of developed countries and communities that make these commitments, like the Paris Climate Agreement thing, is that we're not really addressing all the factors. And like I say, it's just excessive consumption, the materialism and the consumption that we engage in. And so I'm going to vote no, because I don't want to repeal that. I want to keep it in place so that we can move forward and try and evolve and maybe expand and improve how we approach the issue of greenhouse gas emissions and climate change.
All right. Elliot.
Capital gains, tax the rich, come up with some recipes. Maybe we can eat them someday.
Hell yeah.
Taxing is good for now. The natural gas thing, I'm voting no out of spite. This is the second stupidest thing I've ever seen on my ballot. I hate it when an industry comes up with a bunch of money and says, do this for me. And that's what they've done. They got paid signature gatherers, and they made up a fake issue to protect themselves. And the only time I've seen this be done that was stupider was when I lived in California. The kidney dialysis industry bought themselves an initiative to protect their industry. And it was like, why am I choosing how kidney dialysis should operate? Shouldn't doctors from the University of San Francisco and UCLA Medical School be making these decisions, not me, a guy who knows about I can tell you how to fix an old Subaru, but I'm not a kidney guy anyway. So hard no on that natural gas.
I co-host a podcast with Libby Dankman, and she was a California politics reporter, and that came up because I was talking about how long the ballot is in Washington State this year, and she was like, "Oh, just look at California every single year, kidney dialysis."
Yeah.
oh my.
Long-term care, I'm torn on. My uncle received some great long-term care. The guy that had been taking care of him for years and years just retired. And long-term care workers do amazing work. $30,000 is not a lot of money. That's a couple of months. So I'm hesitant to get rid of it, but it's also not. That's going to help somebody for a couple of months. It's not really long-term care. I'm really torn on the climate initiative. I drive 120 miles a day round trip to my commute to work. I drive an old 4-cylinder gas car. The state has a incentive program where you can get an electric car subsidized, and the payment is only $160 a month to drive an electric car. I would be a perfect candidate for that. I make 11% too much to qualify. because the way that we do these kind of things in Washington, we have to means test it, because that we want to make sure the idea of somebody who makes a little bit too much money getting some kind of public benefit is just abhorrent to us. So we have to limit it. And I'm frustrated that gas taxes are so high, and that affects people who can least afford to pay them. But I think, as others have said, I don't want to get rid of it. I think maybe the answer is elect people who are going to make it operate in a smarter fashion. Undecided.
Can I?
But you do got your master's, though.
Yeah, sorry, Marie, you wanted
Oh, yeah. I just want to
double
comment
back.
to your point. Like, I also have lived experience about how if you make over a certain amount of money, you suddenly don't qualify for all of
Yeah.
these benefits. But that making over that certain kind of money is not what you need to survive in King County or Washington State. It is some arbitrary federal poverty guideline, but this is like Washington State.
Right.
So it's like, if you make too much money, you're going to end up in poverty.
Right.
Because it's not your gross. It's not your net. It's your gross they're looking off too. So like, I feel you on the lose-lose situation.
In the welfare world, they call it the welfare cliff. I know you're talking about other benefits programs, but the welfare cliff is what they call it when it comes to.
What you know about that?
just as a reporter, I was on food stamps briefly, and that
Are
is
you a
the
fan
only
of power?
experience. Mary, your question.
You hip to power?
Hip to power? Mm-hmm. Like
Parents organizing for welfare and economic rights.
I don't.
Okay,
know.
well, that's
The
who you
local?
talk to about that.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh.
No, I used to be in that. Anyway,
okay.
it used to be ROC, WROC, years ago, Welfare Rights
that one.
Organizing Coalition. Now it's Power. Anyway, they're out of Olympia.
Okay. I
They're
don't
great.
know them.
They're great to talk to if you have questions about that type
Thank
of thing
you. Appreciate
around
it.
public assistance. I'm solidly no, and no. I think that part of what happens is people get these creative ideas about how this shouldn't, I shouldn't have to, well, wait, hold on. Let's make an initiative, and it's like, it's somebody's privilege that's speaking, trying to do these little, let's think that people won't be smart enough to figure out. No, and no. The two that mean the most to me is the capital gains one. Again, like no brainer. That's like a no-brainer, and it's still a very small percentage of, because if you even have that, to be doing that, to have to pay that, you all right. You all right.
I think it was literally 3,000 people in Washington State.
Yeah, it's
out
not
of all
many
of Washington
people.
State.
Yeah, it's like 8% or something.
Yeah.
It's a small group. And then the other one is Walk Harris, and I think people get a little freaked out about it. To me, that's another one that's really important. But there's far too many people who are so not prepared that I think that it needs to go ahead and roll that baby right on out. Go ahead and take that little bit of money out, because there's too many people that are, especially young people, that think, oh, that's not going to happen to me. I need the money now. And then, no, they don't think ahead, really.
But so you're voting no to get rid of it.
I'm voting
No to keep it.
to keep it in place.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Don't mess with it.
No. It is confusing. The other side, right? Their campaign is like, just vote yes to pay less, which is a simple thing.
But they do
There's
that
no other-
purposefully. And so with these initiatives, that is one thing that's kind of a pet peeve of mine, is that when they write it, you have to really have known your stuff. And I find a lot of young people, like I have a 25-year-old son, and I find that a lot of young people really like, that's another thing that makes them not even want to vote, because they don't want to be on the wrong side of it. So literally, I'm like, okay, well, let's have a little Zoom party and let's go over the ballot so you guys can understand better, because it is. I'm 55 years old this year, and if it's confusing to me, I can't even imagine for a 25-year-old. So we just need to like make it plain and no, and no.
People do not like talking about death or taxes.
Yeah.
So that last one that you mentioned is unpopular. Okay, which candidate are you leaning towards for governor, and why?
Definitely Ferguson. And what's crazy is I told you I'm a anti-trafficking advocate, and I went to the Stolen Youth Luncheon, and I got to meet Dave Reichert. And actually, I admire him very much because he is so down to earth. And as I said, I really like my politicians to be accessible and for me to be able to talk to them. And he is very approachable and accessible every time I've seen him. Also really loved Gil Kurlikowski because of that, and several other people, and Inslee as well. But just not sorry, you're just not
didn't sway you
repping
in
my
person.
people. No. And I told him that. I was like, I really admire you and your career and your law enforcement history, and thank you for your service, but there's some of your policies I can't ride with. And I can't like put Handmaid's Tale in the back, of my mind far enough to go ahead and vote for him. I'm sorry.
Okay. Elliot, governor.
Undecided, leaning Reichert. This state has not elected a Republican governor since 1980. Mount St. Helens had a snow-capped peak the last time we voted for a Republican governor. I was born in 1983. John Spellman left office in 85 when I was still in diapers. I have been under Democrat rule my entire life. I identify as a Democrat. I lean Democrat. I have also lived in Texas, and I have seen what one-party rule does. And Texas has some of the laziest, stupidest Republicans because they don't have to try. And I'm concerned that that's what's happening to our state, is all you have to do is say the right liberal things and you win the election, and you don't actually have to make our state better. And I want to rattle the birdcage, and I want to give the Democrats a timeout and put Reichert in there for 4 years and make the Democrats try harder. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I also, as I said, crime is my number one issue this time around. I like the idea of putting a cop in there. My hesitancy, I am not concerned with Bob Ferguson taking my gun permits away. I am concerned with Dave Reichert taking my same-sex marriage license away. I don't know if I can trust the guy with my marriage license. So undecided, leaning Reichert.
I'm so sorry, but I just want to ask, what could Ferguson do to win your vote? I'm asking a follow-up question. Oh no.
Last night in the debate, he looked like a little wiener. He kept interrupting King Five's Joyce Taylor, demanding that she enforce the rules. And as she was trying to enforce the rules, he was interrupting her. It was just embarrassing. And Reichert was calm, cool, collected, explained things that he was going to do for the state. And Ferguson just kept saying, he likes Trump. He likes Trump. Trumpy, Trumpy, Trumpy. I don't care who the guy likes. I care what he's going to do for my state. I need to hear Ferguson say in concrete details, what is he going to do to get fentanyl off our streets? What is he going to do to clean up petty crime? What is he going to do to make gasoline more affordable for people like me who have to buy a lot of it? Tell me what you're going to do. Tell me how the Evergreen State is going to be better with you in the governor's mansion. Don't tell me that the other guy likes Trump, therefore I must vote for you. Tell me what you're going to do to make Washington better.
Joyce Taylor is a legend, and we were talking about that. We were like, you can't.
That was disrespectful. Yeah.
She's amazing.
Ron, governor.
So a lot of what Elliot's just said resonates with me. I really like Dave Reichert, and he's the kind of guy that I could imagine sitting down and watching a football game with and hearing a lot of really interesting stories, and that we could accept each other's differences. And personality-wise, he wins the contest. I don't really like Bob Ferguson. He was kind of a, like what you said, a weenie last night. But I don't like the fact that Reichert made a point of saying that he's not going to support any presidential candidate. Yeah. That just struck me as a little odd. It sounded a little bit like former Chief Diaz coming out as gay after being accused of sexual harassment. That's just how it sounded to me. So for me, it comes down to, as a voter, I feel like I have a responsibility to vote for the person that's the most qualified. And Dave, bless his heart, he didn't seem to understand some of the issues. Like when they were talking about affordable housing, he wanted to talk about gas prices and what the cost of food and stuff. And that's not really what's driving housing issues. There's more deeper things behind that. I'm not really that happy with what Ferguson had to say about building millions of new homes, because I don't think that's going to solve it either. But I felt like when I listened to the candidates, that Ferguson has a much better grasp of the overall issues facing the state government. And even though I don't think he wins the personality contest, I'm going to vote for him just because I think he's a better candidate.
Elliot had the nicest things to say about Reichert's performance at the debate that I have heard from anyone. Because I mean, Reichert apologized himself for like, I'm not a debater, you know. And he seemed unprepared. I know debating is not his thing. I was surprised. One of my colleagues said he didn't seem like somebody who had been elected and won debates before. He seemed like somebody who was rusty and unprepared.
He had a cold. His nose was running. And then if you're going to say no to Trump, I was waiting for him to do a Cheney and be like, but I'm voting for Kamala. It's like, and then you said no
It didn't
to
seem
Kamala
like
too?
it didn't seem like it sounded like he was setting up for a mic drop, and I was like, oh, what's he gonna say? But he didn't. Yeah, Marie.
Would you mind asking the question
Yeah,
again, please?
sorry.
Thank you. No.
Which candidate are you leaning towards for governor, and why?
Well, Bob Ferguson, I really liked what he did as Attorney General. I liked how he did a lot for the Consumer Protection Division. He's gotten a lot of class action suits out there. He also sued the Trump administration a million times. He did a lot of really effective work in his position. And I think he went above and beyond. He didn't have to do some of that stuff. He took risks. And again, I really appreciated his immigration policy. And those things are important. Sure. And so, yeah. So that's what I'm hoping to see. I think as far as Republicans, I'm like, Dave Reichert doesn't seem like the most, he doesn't frighten me as much as others could. But I also wonder about Washington's like sort of police record and the violence that's happened, and like, would he be able to improve that? Like, what could he do to make that better? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
He's no Semi Bird.
Kathleen. Oh man, callback.
We don't have to worry about
R.I.P. I was at his his primary night party.
Or that other
different
dude.
Vibe.
Remember the other dude before?
Cole.
Yeah, Cole.
We still have Culp signs in Whatcom County.
Oh, Lord.
Wow.
Rip them down. Burn them down.
All right, Kathleen, governor.
Bob Ferguson, for like the same reasons you were saying. I think as Attorney General, he stood up to an administration that they didn't know how to handle all these attorney generals standing up to them. And he also volunteered as a Jesuit volunteer many, many years ago. And I also was a Jesuit volunteer. So I think that's kind of an exciting thing in one way, and also maybe not an exciting thing in one way. When you're young and you have all these like, oh, I'm going to save the world. And then the world crushes you a little bit. You're like, never mind. But I think that I was happy with what he did as Attorney General. And yeah, he's the candidate that I think aligns more with my views than the Republican candidate. So, yeah.
Liz.
Yeah, Bob Ferguson as well. For a lot of the same reasons. And also, I think he took pharmaceutical companies to task as well.
Yes.
But most importantly for me, ever since Roe versus Wade was appealed, a lot of people think we're safe here in Washington State, and I do not feel that it can't happen here. And so I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I'm voting in people who will protect a woman's right to choose.
Yeah. All right. How much time do we have left? A little time check.
Probably 5:45 max, but like however long that's like, or whatever you want to get into these questions. At least get to 30, like number 13.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and then whatever else you want to ask.
I think this one will probably be a lightning round.
Yeah.
Which candidate are you leaning towards for president, and why? You can just say one word if you want.
I'm voting for Kamala.
Yeah, Harris.
Kamala.
Do I have to say one word?
You don't have to say anything.
I was at, last night I went to city council meeting because there was an issue, and my friend Lisa sitting next to me had the debate on her phone. So I've got that earbud in one ear listening to that. And Kamala Harris was electrifying. Mm-hmm. I mean, she ripped Trump a new one. And I was really, it was just really great to see. So obviously I'm going to vote for Kamala.
Ellie?
I'm proudly and enthusiastically voting for Harris and Walz. Prior to her becoming the nominee, I was going to cast a vote for Biden to vote against Trump. But now I'm enthusiastically voting for Harris.
Absolutely the same. Kamala for sure, 100%. When Black women do something, we rise and we bring everybody with us. And that's my personal history. And I don't think we get enough credit for that. So to me, this is the year of the Black woman, and it's definitely time for Kamala.
This is number 13. And what does your community... I'm skipping a ton. There were a ton of others, but we just don't have time. What does your community need from their representative?
From their representative? Who they?
From your representative, yeah.
You mean like my state
what
rep?
does your
Like
community
Santos?
need
And so when you say my representative, you're talking about, for me, it would be the 37th district.
You can
representative, or are you
interpret it
talking
however
about-
you want. You could interpret it Congress. We've heard Congress, yeah, take it how you want.
Okay.
Representatives.
Okay, because I'm thinking of Adam Smith, and I'm thinking of Cantwell, and I'm thinking of all the people down the line. But for me personally, I already said at the beginning, I need to see you. I need to see you in my community. You need to come through. Like, you need to be at the barbecue or the cookout every now and then. You need to be in front of people that look like me and have the issues that I have. And you need to be accountable. And if something's going sideways, we need to take you to task. Like, you need to be able to be communicative. So that's what I, number one, expect from any politician. And I really feel that way about the national ones too. Like, I should be able to access you in some sort of way and tell you what's going on with me, my family, whatever it is. So that's, I don't know if that's really getting at what you want, but.
No. Yeah. So Adam Smith and Maria Cantwell are invited to your next cookout.
Yeah.
Take note.
Well, like Patty Murray, like I have a picture in my home of Patty Murray holding my son
I hear it, yeah.
when he was little, because she came to our Head Start because she did a book event, because reading is fundamental. And so it was important that she participated in that. So the types of things that I'm looking for is definitely things that are community based, but also are relevant for me and my family. And oftentimes that means it has to do with race, or it has to do with feminism and women and rights for women.
Elliot, what does your community need from their representative?
Pedestrian safety. We've got a problem with people getting hit and killed by cars in my community. We're fortunate that we don't have murders. We don't have that kind of crime. When unnatural deaths occur in my community, it's because somebody got hit by a car. We need sidewalks. We need bright lights. We need infrastructure to make it safe for people to walk from the bus stop, the park and ride, the casino, to the town center, to the residential area. We need money for a safer road.
Okay. Ron.
So what I want from my representatives, I want them to tell the truth. I want them to be accessible. I want them to be creative and work with everybody. Don't set up your silos. I know Greg Nance, who I think is a up-and-coming representative. He works across the aisle. And I really admire what he does. Like I said, tell the truth, show leadership, be goal-oriented, get stuff done, and work together with people.
Marie, what does your community need from their representative?
Yeah,
Your representative?
I'm smiling because I can't hold it in. Greg Nance is my friend's nephew. He's awesome.
A lot of people have close connections to Greg
6
Nance,
degrees.
turns out.
Yeah.
A lot of people were his coach
Yeah.
or other things.
Wow.
Anyway.
I feel like, as a person who is a woman of color who's disabled and I'm currently unemployed, I feel like I would like to see access to help from our representatives to help us have a more easeful use of the system's safety net. It's really hard to access things that we need, including unemployment. If you've ever talked to anybody try to sign up for unemployment, and then try to keep it.
Too.
Yeah, it's so much work. It's so much work. And then the other thing is affordability in Washington, and I live in King County, is a lot. It's like such a big issue. We have such a huge income disparity. And I would love to see, like, I know that people talk about solving the housing issue with like more housing, but the housing that's coming up isn't affordable housing. And what is considered affordable housing by some people is appalling. Like somebody who's working full time at a grocery store can't afford that. Like I would love to be able to see King County, Seattle be a place where people can just work a regular job, work hard, go into work every day, be reliable, like Washington was known for it. Having a regular job, going in every day at these local businesses and being able to like, you know, own your home, or at least like afford a rent in your county. So I'd love to see help with that.
Yeah, you're right. That's the most affordable city in America, I think we were called at one point.
Wow.
Seattle, that is, but someone called us that. Kathleen?
I think in my community especially, there's an extreme shortage of health accessibility for both mental and physical health. I know I've had a heck of a time finding a doctor in Kitsap County, and I think that a representative, again, needs to be available. How would a representative know that, like, I'm having trouble finding a dermatologist? Like, how would they know that unless we run into each other? And what would that representative do to make sure that we have access to that kind of healthcare? And again, like, I'm voting for Emily Randall. I really hope she goes to Washington, DC, the other Washington. And I know that she knows that those are issues facing a lot of people in my county, in my area. And I know that she wants to keep Kitsap County a place where people can live and work and play, and not have to do these ridiculous commutes. Like I said, I live in Bremerton. I work in Bremerton. I run into my families that I work with all the time, and I really love that. And I want that for everybody. Well, if everybody wants that, some people don't want to be seen when they're out in public. But I think that there's so much value in that, and I feel so much more connected to my community in ways that I haven't felt in a really long time. So I hope that my representative can also connect with me in those ways and in those spaces, and go to the library and be in those third spaces, and, you know, run into somebody at the grocery store. I think that's really important. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Liz, what does your community need from their representative?
I think we need a representative or representatives who are really good with nuance and good with taking complicated issues and breaking them down so that they're understandable to the average person, because there are no easy answers. And whenever there are representatives who are talking about things with catchy catchphrases and stuff, those are usually not things that are going to actually do any good. I am thinking specifically of the housing crisis and the surge of homelessness. We do have a really big homeless population in Bellingham, and any representative who says they have the answer and they have the fix, I think is just wanting to be voted in, because no one, I think, has the answer, because it's such a complicated, multifaceted issue. And so we need representatives who are able to talk about really complex issues so that people can understand them and communicate. I do think reaching across the aisle is really important. Yeah. I am a big fan of people working together, and we need representatives who are willing to, not just willing, but eager to bring people together instead of continuing sort of in this divisive way that we have been seeing kind of echoed around the nation. So specifically for my community, I would say homelessness, accessibility to mental health care, and physical health care, affordable housing. I have a lot of friends who are moving out of the state because they can't afford to buy a home. I want my children to be able to live near me if they so choose. That's up in the air still, but we'll see. Yeah. So that's it.
This is the final question. And you could take this with
We was having fun.
I know. These things just start to get really fun, and then we have to say goodbye. But you got to get home to Bellingham or Suquamish or wherever you're coming from. But so this question you can take it as presidential and governor. You could take it just as presidential, just governor, whatever, or other things. Have you thought about any reactions or plans if the election outcome is different to your hopes? Different than you, if the outcome is different. Presidential, governor, I'm thinking with Elliot maybe. But Liz, let's start with you.
Yeah. That's such an interesting question. I have not thought about any contingency plans. I do have friends who fled the country the first time Trump was elected. I don't want to do that. I do believe strongly I love America. I love our country, and I love where I live, and I believe in fighting for what you want from the inside. I'm a writer, so I will turn whatever frustrations I feel into art and hope to communicate with people that way and make the world I want to see. If it's in fiction, it's in fiction.
Yeah. Kathleen, Trump wins. Any plans, or Reichert wins?
I think Donald Trump did win a couple years ago, and not all of us thrived, but we're all still here. We stayed, we made it work, and we fought against it. And I think when you can elect good governors, and you can elect good attorney generals, and you can elect your local representatives that truly are much more, represent you a lot more on a granular level. I think if we can get some of those things, if the election does not go the way we think it will, we might not be okay, but I'm not planning to go bail out to Canada or something. I'm not planning to leave. I don't want to say stay and fight, but yeah, stay and fight. I don't know how you could abandon everybody. I said earlier that I care about the regular person. I care about the little person, the little guy. That's who we all need to rise up together. And I think that some candidates appeal to someone. Trump appeals to people that I've still struggled to understand what about him appeals to them, because he actively wants to get rid of the things that create their light, that help their existence. And yeah, I don't see how you could leave everybody behind. That's a cowardly thing to think about, I guess. I don't know. I guess thinking about it stresses me out. It really does stress me out, and I'm rambling now, but anyway, I'm sorry. That was not my best answer.
No, I appreciate it. And you mentioned this before we turned on the tape, I think, and not since then, but you are a children's librarian, and I think that is informing your answer, it sounds like.
Oh, definitely. We have families of all different walks of life that feel welcome in my library. And I think that's beautiful. In the Sylvan Night, yeah. So I think that there's a lot more hope than we realize, and I think that we all have a lot more fight in us than we know.
Thank you. That
Hopefully,
was very nice.
Moms for Liberty don't come through with the book ban.
Marie, if the election outcome is not what you hope.
I live in Greenwood, and there's a lot of cannabis around, so I feel like I might just go for a little walk, and then I might come home and call some friends and cry for a while. And I'm talking about the president. And I probably will have to write about it too. And to your point, Liz, just imagining a world where it wouldn't be the case. But there's moments where I think, what would happen if Kamala won? Mm-hmm. What if we had a Black and South Asian president? And it just makes me so emotional and makes me feel like we're living that like a little piece of a dream, like the real American dream, for a moment to see a woman of color in the White House. So I try to lean into that. And what I've learned from life is that I can handle the difficult stuff when it comes. I would rather it not, but that's why we have each other.
Mm-hmm. Ron, staying in Bainbridge, no matter what?
Yeah, I'm pretty well anchored there. So if I guess this is if Trump wins, I'm going to be pretty surprised, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's a pretty stark choice. I'm going to be very disappointed in my country if Trump wins. I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing. I'm part of an environmental nonprofit on Bainbridge. I'm active in local politics, promoting new candidates, working with our city council. We have a lot of issues going on, from affordable housing to race equity to environmental issues, working with Squamish tribe. And we're going to keep going and promoting that stuff regardless who wins and who loses. But I'm certainly going to be excited if Kamala wins. Super excited.
Yeah, for me, if Ferguson wins, I'm undecided, but leading Reichert. If Ferguson wins, that's fine. I mean, I think he'll be a good governor. Be fine on that front. As far as president, if Trump wins, I am metaphorically going to go to war against Project 2025. It calls for the elimination of the United States Merchant Marine, to basically fire every American who works on a ship and replace us with lower paid foreign workers. It calls for outlawing a medication that I take every day. So I am going to direct all of my efforts into lobbying, letter writing, petitioning, protesting to stop Project 2025. I hope it doesn't come to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Well, if Reichert wins versus Ferguson, I don't think it would be the end of the world. Like I said, I felt like dude was pretty approachable. So if I got to camp out on his lawn over something, it is what it is, as long as you got good gear, right?
It's in Lake Chelan, so it might be nice.
I mean, But I remember when the governor's mansion, like literally they went down there and smashed the door on it was like, bro, they need to be getting on them people. That's not okay. Anyway, but I think it would be palatable, put it that way. But and even with Ferguson, there's things that I would like to hold him accountable to. Because I don't think we always do the most smartest choices sometimes, bureaucratically. I think it sounds good sometimes, but then the actual walking it out, it don't always match. So that goes back to the honesty piece too, like he said. If Trump wins, well, that would be scary because to me, that's like basically it's about to be slavery times. So I was watching this movie last night called Buck and the Preacher, and Ruby Dee had a gun, and I feel like I don't have a gun right now, but I feel like it would be like some dire straits if that happens. I don't think I'm going to go to Canada, but I definitely will be thinking much more about how am I going to stay in my home? What kind of job am I going to have that I can do some of those things like the letter writing and all that? Because I'm going to have to really flex.
Right.
I'm not going to quit Democrats for Diversity and Inclusion. I'm not going to quit now. Seattle chapter. I'm not going to quit being in 37th district. So I'm going to do all the things that I've been doing. And then I'm going to be trying to recruit more people. But, in the black community, it's like we always say, we never had a president that was really looking out for us anyway. So I mean, a lot of people are like, we just survived through whoever's up in there. I mean, it was kind of like we got lucky when Obama got up in there. But yeah, like the glimpse of what if Kamala gets there, like, man, I mean, I'm still going to be pushing for reparations. I'm still finna hold her accountable too. All the disproportionality and the ways that things happen to people of color, it's like, and all the systems that, even though, like, I was listening to this thing about black farmers today, and they've won on some levels. They've proven that, you know, they were disproportionately not getting offered numerous loans and all kinds of stuff
from the USDA.
right. But how are we going to actually hold that accountable? Like that's the part that needs to change for me. And so on some level, it's the administration, not so much just the president. Like people are saying now, well, why she hasn't did stuff the past? She's the vice president. You don't just come in there and be like, well, I'm finna do this. You know, same with Obama. You got to make it through the Congress, and you got to make it through, you know, all the other channels that we have in place that are the checks and balances. So I just hope civics education becomes important on another level. And I think a lot of people did get involved because the last time the orange Cheeto was in there. But yeah, if that happened, I'll probably be crying and really upset too. So I'm hoping that a glimpse for the future is really a glimpse at all of our future, and it's a kinder, gentler, democratic nation, not all this divisiveness and just me, my, mine. You know, and narcissism and all this other crazy, like people are walking around still really messed up from the pandemic and that. So it's like, let's move on and let's kind of get back to like Sesame Street values. Let's all get our kumbaya on and let's work together. You know, you don't got to believe in everything I believe in, but can we just do like Sesame Street and just, you know, pick a letter of the day and let's all push for that. So anyway,
Sesame Street for civics.
Yeah,
for
no
City Hall.
slavery.
I like it.
That's the main thing. No more
So,
slavery.
Mary, how can we vote for you?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm not that brave
Yeah,
yet.
when are you running for 37th LD? Might be an
I'm
opening.
not
soon.
that brave yet. I
Yeah.
really like Shasti, who is our King County and state leader. So I'm with Shasti.
Thank you all so much for taking the time to come out here and talk and share your honest feelings, even when they were different, maybe than the rest of the group. That takes a lot of courage. And yeah, I think we're gonna take a photo here at the end. Yeah, the whole group. So yeah, thank you again.